Hey, I'm Jamie from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to do an updated version of a video that I filmed around 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. And in that video, I talked about 10 games that I love that Stonemaier Games may have published if they had been submitted to us. These are games that essentially fit into our guidelines, which are largely event games, games that take around 45, more than 45 minutes, that aren't overly antagonistic and that play from at least 1 to 5 players out of the box. And so in that video, some of my picks were Tzolk'in, Mysterium, Orleans, Seven Wonders, Lords of Waterdeep, Architects of the West Kingdom, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Isle of Skye, Downforce, and Ra. And since then, 5 years has passed. A number of amazing games have come out during that time. And I love what the publishers who had these games did with these games. This is not a plea for me to try to publish these games. It's me more celebrating these games as games that just happen to fit well within the Stonemaier Games guidelines. Again, I'm not looking to publish these games. I'm very happy where these games are with these other publishers. But to celebrate them, let's jump into my list and I'll explain why I love these games and why I think of these games as if they could have been Stonemaier games. Some honorable mentions, and well, I'll just say it: Mysterium Park, Cartographers Heroes, Santa's Workshop. Those are 3 honorable mentions that I'm not making eligible for this list because they are based on games or they are sequels to games or new editions of games that came out before 2020. It's an arbitrary guideline, but just because the last time I made this list, it was in 2020, I figured I would only include new games from the last 5 years. Also, Sea Dragons and Raising Robots very closely made the list. And one other one that very closely didn't quite make the top 10 was Distilled. And Distilled happens to be the pick for our solo gamer, Aryn. Here's what Aryn says about Distilled. The first time I sat down to play this game, I felt this wouldn't have been out of place in Stonemeier's catalog. The knock against it, if it is even a knock, is that the solo mode doesn't feel like a typical Automa Factory solo mode. And I will say, this is Jamie briefly, that is fine. Like many of the games on this list actually don't have a solo mode because we kind of have separate processes for the multiplayer modes in our games, or the multiplayer game, the core game, and then the solo mode, which is also part of the core game, but it's just developed separately. So that's okay. Aryn goes on to say, but in regards to gameplay is hard not to raise a glass to this clever engine building design that also teaches you about the distilling process. Aryn also mentioned World Wonders and Flamecraft as 2 games that they think could have been a part of the Stonemaier catalog based on our guidelines. Again, our guidelines are event games, 45 plus minutes. Typically, they aren't overly antagonistic, and they play from at least 1 to 5 players. The one part of it is flexible for this particular list because we add solo modes to our games through Automa Factory. So game number 10, let's get up the other screen here. Here we go. Dune Imperium Uprising. Dune Imperium / Dune Imperium Uprising are some of my favorite games. Dune Imperium is a 1 to 4 player game. Dune Imperium Uprising increases the player count to 5 and 6. And the only reason it's so low on this list is that to play at 5 or 6, you need to play in teams. And this is fine. I don't think we haven't really done this with the Stonemaier game, where to get to that 5 or 6 player count, that it requires you to play with a different mode of play. I'm not entirely against it, but I'm also not entirely for it. I would prefer for you to be able to play the core style of playing the game, even when you have 5 or 6 players, where it still flows well. The turns are quick. The game doesn't take too long at that player count. This is a bit of a longer game for Stonemaier games. Dune Imperium can go up to 3 hours. I've seen it do that. And so that would be stretching one of our games a little bit. But we have a few games that do stretch that playing time. Typically, we aim for 45 to 90 minutes. But the core gameplay of this game, the deck building combined with the worker placement, the high levels of agency in the game. We don't have a deck building game yet, but we do love worker placement. So it'd be a neat way for us to step into the world of deck building. It's just a fantastic game. And it does have combat, but it doesn't feel antagonistic in this game. You aren't targeting specific other players. You're just kind of joining the fray that other players might also join or not join. Dune Imperium Uprising. So it's lower on this list purely because the way to get to 5 and 6 players in this game is to play in a different way than the 1 to 4 player game. Dune Imperium Uprising at number 10. At number 9 is one of the most recent games that I played, but I think this game is really special. This game is Here Lies. This is a cooperative mystery solving deduction game with 25 scenarios. Each scenario is, you get a few clues about someone who, I guess it's not always, I've only played one of them so far, so I don't know if it's always someone who has died, but it's always a mystery. And there's probably going to be a number of murders or deaths among these mysteries. The hook of it, in fact, I have it on my desk right now because I'm going to film a video about it today. The hook in this game is that you have a lead investigator who has the full information about the case, and they are trying to use limited communication to correspond with the other detectives, the other investigators, to figure out the mystery. And those other investigators have similar forms of limited communication to ask questions to the lead investigator. An example for this would be, and each of the characters are different. You can see the characters on the screen here. Each character has their own deck of cards that gives you things like, actually, here's an example. I'll just read on the screen. Let's see if this works. The game is afoot. The lead investigator, so that's the person with full information, invents a title for this case by adding up to 3 words to the back of this card. So that's an example of the type of information that you can request from the lead investigator, or as the non-lead investigators, the detectives. I can also there's one where I get to write down a couple different words, and the lead investigator chooses one of those words to apply to the case. There's things that you can draw. There's even a little bit of pantomiming if you want. There's a lot of limited communication that happens in this game in interesting ways as you try to decipher this mystery. I love limited communication cooperative games. It leads to a lot of cleverness, in my opinion. And yeah, so Here Lies at number 9 on this list. At number 8 is Mlem. So this is one of several cat-themed games on this list. I do love cats. We don't have a cat-themed game. Not that we necessarily need one, but it would be nice to have one. And Mlem uses, I actually don't really know why they are cats, but it adds a whimsical nature to this whimsical game in which players are boarding a spaceship and generally trying to fly as deep into space using push your luck mechanisms, led by the captain. But if the captain jumps off the ship, someone else becomes the captain. Try to get as deep into space as possible, and you're trying to jump off at the right time. I think the game flows really well. It's a lot of fun to play, and it does play 2 to 5 players. I think a solo mode could pretty easily be added to this game. And I've had a delightful time with it at various player counts and with different types of players too. It's the type of game where one person knows what they're doing. They can really lead the game quite well, even with people who don't know how to play the game. And yeah, Mlem. I am delighted by Mlem, and I could see it fitting into Stonemeier's catalog. At number 7, I have the other cat-themed game on this list. I think this is the only other one. This is Cat in the Box. This is a trick-taking game where the cards don't have suits. We don't have a trick-taking game at Stonemaier Games, and so it would be nice to add one. And I think this one has such a clever hook in that the cards don't have suits, and you define the suit or the color of that card as you play the card. It's such a clever hook. As soon as I heard that hook, I was like, oh, I need to play this game. And then when I played the game, I wanted to play it more, and I have kept it on my shelf ever since and have played it many times since then. Yeah, I love Cat in the Box. I can definitely see it fitting within our lineup of games. At number 6, we have Endeavor Deep Sea, one of the more recent games on this list. This is a deep game, as the game mentions. It is one of the heavier games on this list, but that's okay. We publish heavier games, and I think Endeavor Deep Sea makes a heavy game really, really accessible due to the core action system, where you are simply choosing one of your characters to activate, and you activate their ability. And there's plenty of ways you can progress in this game. You have these tracks that you can progress on your player mat to upgrade your engine. You can upgrade your characters. You can flip the tiles over. You kind of upgrade the shared space with all players due to the depths of the ocean in which you're exploring. And the art, the first-person perspective of the art is beautiful. I love how the tiles fit together. There's this sense of awe and mystery as you dive down deeper. And I love how the mechanisms of each tile are designed so specifically towards the theme of that tile. Reminds me a lot of, I would say, it reminds me a little bit of Wingspan, in that the bird abilities are inspired oftentimes by the bird itself. But these are entire ecosystems that these tiles are featuring in Endeavor Deep Sea. Really special game here, and I've heard great things about the solo mode too, so I think it does play solo. That is Endeavor Deep Sea at number 6. And number 5 is, so one of my favorite mechanisms in games are one-way action selection tracks. We now have Tokaido. I played First Rat before we had Tokaido in the Stonemaier Games lineup, and but without Tokaido, I would have loved to have a game with a one-way action selection track. Also, we do have Tapestry, but it's a little bit different because in First Rat, you can move. You can't move it necessarily as far forward as you want, but you can move. You have a range as to like how far forward in one direction you can move, and you can move pretty far. And the cool thing about First Rat is that there are not just one-way action selection track, but there are 3 such tracks. There's the track that you're using to gather resources with your rat. There is this little light bulb mechanism that you're advancing the light bulb track. It's been so long, I forget what the light bulb track does, but it's something good in the game. I forgot about that. And there's this other track down related to essentially 3 different mini games that you could participate in as you move around this. And this is actually a cyclical track, so it's not entirely one way, but you are moving in one direction and deciding where you want to cut off on this track. So 3 different tracks that play in 3 very different ways. It is a really satisfying game to play, and one that I'm always happy to get to the table. That is First Rat. At number 4, we have The Gang. The Gang is a cooperative poker game. And one of the reasons that I would have loved for this game to be submitted to me is that for many years before I had a weekly game night, I had a weekly poker night. I love poker. I don't play much anymore, but I do love the game. And I no longer really want to bet money when I play games, but The Gang is a cooperative game. You're not betting money. You're not even trying to have the best hand. Rather, you are trying to communicate how good your hand is in relation to all the other players' hands, which you don't know. You are basing this off of what they are communicating. Another limited communication cooperative game. I've had a blast with The Gang. I've had a blast with people that I used to play poker with. I've had a blast with people who have never played poker. I think as long as you know the order of poker hands, it can play well with anyone. And it is absolutely thrilling when you win the gang, and when you lose the gang, oftentimes I found that I want to play again right away to see if we can win. I really love this game, and we don't have many cooperative games. We have a cooperative mode for Scythe. We have my big open world game Vantage coming out, and we also have Smitten, a 1 to 2 player cooperative game. I'm pointing to the art on my wall here, but I would love to have a few more cooperative games in our lineup, and The Gang would have made an excellent one of them. Next up at number 3, we have Planet Unknown. This is one of 2 remaining simultaneous action games wherein Planet Unknown, the active player is choosing a position on this industrial Susan, this rondel, this moving rondel of polyomino tiles, and they are choosing one way for this rondel to point towards them, and they're going to choose the top tile on the top of one of these stacks, one of these 2 stacks. They'll choose one of them, and they'll put it into their tableau, their planet. And based on what's on that tile, they get to advance on typically 2 different tracks. The tracks all mean different things. They're designed differently. They all feel good. They have this strong sense of progression. You're trying to fill in your map with polyomino tiles. This is a game that I would not have loved to playtest because of the amount of cutting polyomino tiles that you would have had to do to playtest this game. But I love that it exists. And I think that the big rondel, the industrial Susan here, I think that is brilliant. The whole game, I think, comes together so well, and I am always happy to play it. And I love asymmetric pairing. So you have this asymmetric mat, or it can be asymmetric. Over here, this mat can be asymmetric, and the planet can be asymmetric. So you have this asymmetric pairing. You've seen that in a lot of our Stonemaier games. And because of the simultaneous play, it scales up to, I believe, maybe 6 players. Let's see, how many players does Planet Unknown play? 1 to 6 players. Yeah, it scales perfectly up to that, those higher player counts. I love Planet Unknown. I could definitely see this fitting within our lineup at Stonemaier Games. Next up at number 2, we have Forest Shuffle. Not a simultaneous play game, but a tableau building game. Since 2 characteristics are going to be shared in the final game that I'll pick on this list. But Forest Shuffle is a card-driven game. It's very easy to set up and play. You are removing some cards based on player count. Scales well up to 5. You're building a forest of animals and trees and bugs and birds, all sorts of flora and fauna in your forest. Some of them are engine building. Some of them are instant benefits. You can get extra turns. Most everything is building towards points at the end of the game. And even though, so many of our games have a core component hook, so a component that really stands out at the table. And you might think that a card only game would have a component, but I believe that Forest Shuffle does because of these dual-sided cards. You can't really see it in this photo. Let's see if I have a photo of, I don't have a good photo available of the dual-sided cards. But like this bird up here, the bottom side of that card has something like a mushroom on the bottom. So when I play that card, I'm deciding to play it as a bird above a tree or as a mushroom below a tree. Here's an insect below a tree over here. Here's a bird up top. Same with the animals. So these split cards, a really, really clever card design mechanism in Forest Shuffle that I think is a really clever component hook for the game. So Forest Shuffle is definitely a game that I think would fit into the Stonemaier Games lineup. And we do have a lot of tableau building games. And that doesn't mean I think that we would not consider future tableau building games, because I think it's really satisfying to build that sense of engine build, that a sense of progression in that engine through a card-driven tableau building game. We also have tile-driven tableau building games. We're all about tableau building games here at Stonemaier Games. So that is Forest Shuffle at number 2. Now to combine the simultaneous play and the tableau building, I have Earth as the final game. Earth is a simultaneous game where one player is choosing a type of action, and all players get to activate all cards that they have that color of action at the bottom. They'll activate them in a specific order. The thing that elevates Earth for me, even beyond the card activations, is that you have the sense that your forest or your island is alive because of the growth tokens, the sprouts, these tokens that you're putting on the cards, but you're not just always leaving them on the cards. You are actively putting them on, taking them off. You're seeing them grow. Sometimes you are taking them down a little bit. Your island is alive thanks to these tokens and thanks to the vast variety of cards available in this game, Earth. Recently, I played the new expansion, or not the new, I guess there's one expansion on Kickstarter right now as I film this. The Abundance expansion is the one that I've played with. I've really enjoyed that expansion, especially in terms of the positive player interaction that it adds to the game. I love positive player interaction in games, and that makes it fit well within the Stonemaier Games lineup. But yeah, Earth scales really well because of its simultaneous play to higher player counts, and I think it would fit beautifully within Stonemeier's lineup. Our family gamer, Skylar, also picked Earth as her top pick. And she says, I think Earth would fit wonderfully with Stonemeier's catalog of games. Earth has a great simultaneous action system that allows the game to progress quickly while each player is building an engine that is very satisfying to run. I highly recommend checking this one out. We always have fun building our islands and developing the flora and fauna on them. She recommends this for 12 and higher, ages 12 and higher. Skylar is our family gamer, so she's thinking about the ages of different kids. She also recommended Planet Unknown and Forest Shuffle, so Skylar's picks happen to be my top 3 picks on this list. I think that's it for this list of top 10 games from the last 5 years that Stonemaier Games may have published if they happen to have been submitted to us. But again, I am very grateful for all the hard work that these publishers and these designers put into the games. I'm just glad for them to exist. We don't need to publish every game that could have fit within our catalog. I'm happy for other publishers to publish them. And that way I just get to enjoy them on my shelf and on my table. So yeah, that is my list. I'm curious what you think. What's your top pick? Maybe your favorite game from all the games that I mentioned today, whether it's from the last 5 years or the previous list that went back even earlier than that. Or is there a game from the last 5 years that you think feels like a Stonemaier game, and you were surprised when you found out that it wasn't a Stonemaier game? There might be some games like that you've played. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.